wanted to talk about potential energy. Potential energy has been called many things over thousands of years. It's been called chi, prana, source. So many examples of describing the same thing, which is a potential of energy within your body. And we all have this potential energy flowing through us at all times, at varying levels depending on what's going on. So the reason I want to call it potential energy is because that energy can be used and directed in many ways, depending on what the situation is. So a very common one is if we feel threatened. What will happen is if we perceive something to be a threat, then potential energy will go up. Now, that potential energy has been already kind of decided to be directed to the defense of ourself against whatever that potential threat is. But where awareness comes into this is being aware in that moment and second guessing and considering whether the situation is actually of a threat. Am I actually going to die or be harmed from this situation? A lot of the time, the answer is no. And even though we feel defensive in a situation, that situation is actually not a threat to us. And so what we have left is this potential energy that's still there. Now, the great thing about this is that potential energy can be directed elsewhere. It can be directed into physical exercise. It can be directed into creative pursuits. It can be directed even just to feed the cells in your body and feel that increase of energy. It can be directed to the brain to increase cognitive power. It's all just potential energy that can be used in different ways. So when in meditation and things come up that we're feeling that agitation, that rise in defensiveness and anger, we can change the direction of that energy where it's going. The thought of the thing that's making us feel defensive, which is increasing that potential energy, and we can direct it into something else whilst in that state of meditation. This happened to me recently in a really common situation where I'm driving and didn't notice the green go light, the light go green and the person behind me is kind of like, what are you doing? Like, come on, hurry up. And the initial thing in me was like, fuck you, man. Like, I just didn't see the light. I'm going. Like, literally cost you 2 seconds of your time. And that was the initial thing, but then I realized, okay, whatever, like, no big deal. This is all just a reaction, a defense. And so that energy was then, I drew that energy back into my body and directed it into just an increase of feeling of aliveness rather than a dwelling on this need to defend myself, because the reality was I'm fine, everything's okay, there's nothing here to actually defend myself from. That person might be having a bad day, they're a little bit impatient, we've all been there, whatever. So that energy that got brought up, the energy that got developed and became potential, was directed back into just a sense of invigoration. And this is why self-awareness can be so useful in how we manage our energy. So I hope that was potentially helpful and insightful, and see you again soon.